Alright, so this is the second part of this article that I've been reading. This Terry Farrell interview from way back, about 15 or 20 years ago or whatever, from September 1998. And I was reading this article, and I left off at it took a long time for everybody to get that I was really leaving. Until Tears of the Prophets was written, most people didn't believe it. When I got to the set the day we read the preliminary script, it was really rough. I had many shocked people around me. They were saying, they were saying, "You can't leave," or "I can't believe you're going to die." Everyone was dealing with their own emotions about it. That was a tough day at work. It was sad, exciting, and scary all at once. It was very bittersweet. And how about Michael Dorn? What was the reaction of Farrell's pal and Klingon husband Worf? Michael was very funny. He said it didn't really feel real until I was lying there on the bio bed, she explains. That's when it hit him, and it worked well for him because he had a great performance in the episode, a great in-the-moment performance. He's probably not too sad to see me go because we're good friends, and he knows he'll see my sorry ass out there, out in the real world. Combe and Renee Angenois too were very cool about it. They said, "We'll see you." Finally, the day came for Dukat to fire the shots that cut Dax down, just as she and Worf were in the process of enjoying married life. Just as Dr. Bashir had figured out a way for Dax to give birth to a Klingon baby, Farrell remembers that there were few laughs on set as she filmed her two most important scenes, the one in which Dukat shot her and the one in which she succumbed to her wounds after bidding Worf farewell. As often happens in episodic television, scenes from Tears of the Prophets were filmed out of order, meaning Farrell technically died before she was shot. The death scene was done on the first day of the episode, and the day before the last day was me getting zapped, Farrell says, with a bemused laugh. They asked me what I wanted to shoot first, the death scene or another scene that day that had all of us together. I said, "Please let me die first." I figured if we did it that way, I would have the rest of the day to get me. I figured if we did it that way, I would have the rest of the day to get cheered up. I didn't want to die, then be sent home. That would have been such a drag. My very last shot was of me lying on the ground. It was weird. I couldn't believe it was actually happening. I had to sorry. I had to pinch myself. You also have to understand that I was on that ground knowing that the very next day I was going right back to Paramount to see all the head people I already worked for to talk about Becker. I was feeling really good about my chances, knowing that this other opportunity could really happen made me a little less sad about Dax dying. Trills frills. However appropriate it is for Farrell to now look ahead, it's also a time for looking back on her Star Treks. Back in late 1992, Farrell stepped for the very first time onto the DS9 set. She was a 28-year-old beauty whose credits included the horror film Hellraiser 3 and the Rodney Dangerfield comedy Back to School, as well as the TV series Paper Dolls, Starlog number 188. She entered the world of Star Trek quite familiar with the original series and eager to breathe life into Jadzia Dax, the humanoid host of a Trill symbiont. Farrell remarks that the reality of acting on DS9 proved quite different from what she anticipated on other fronts. I thought it would be much easier than it was. The technobabble was much more difficult than I ever thought it would be. She says, the hours were more difficult. I thought I would be able to have a better balance of working and living, and I pretty much, ended up working than resting. I didn't get to spend as much time as I hoped with my friends because I was just so tired. That made me feel so guilty. We would get done so late on Friday nights, and I was always canceling on people. I thought that because DS9 was an ensemble show, I wouldn't work as many days or hours as I did. What you don't realize is that sometimes you have to wait around before you go in. I remember one time I sat at home for 13 hours before they called me in. Another thing that happened a lot on DS9 was that we would get a script the night before we would start working on it. That makes you really good at learning things fast at the last minute. I was so terrified at the beginning, so scared of the words, so nervous. About the technobabble. Now I've got much more confidence. I know I can learn my lines quickly and that I'll be able to get them out when they say action. Also, I now know how to listen to the other actors in a scene. When DS9 started, I was so worried about getting the technobabble right that I could hardly listen to the other actors. To play a scene well, you really have to be able to listen to the people you're acting with, so that you can react to them and not just their words. Going into Becker, it's great to have all the confidence I got from doing DS9. Always fond of her earthly Trill character, Farrell, for the most part, thinks the writers developed her quite well over the years. Would she like to have seen Dax's family even once? Sure. Would she like to have learned even more about what made Dax tick? Of course. Would she have preferred more scenes between Dax and Worf? You bet. Since DS9 is an ensemble show, however, its writers who were obliged to devise stories not just for Dax, but for the 8 other regular characters and the 30+ recurring characters who people the DS9 landscape week after week. But the always candid Farrell doesn't deny feeling that DS9 focused on too many guest stars at the regulars' expense. When you already have 9 people to write for on a weekly basis, I think you should exhaust all of the storylines in those directions first. I don't know what the writers have to do or what their constraints are, because that's certainly not my job, she points out. We've had some great recurring characters, but we don't learn enough about the main characters as a result. Also, if the complaint is that there is not enough money to entice Farrell to remain with DS9, why are they spending more money on guest stars? So they would have me work one day and say one line, then pay 3 people to be guest leads that week. Well, no wonder they have no money. We had 9 regulars. That's a lot of actors. There should have been plenty to write about each one of them. In a way, though, it was great for everyone. The guest actors all want to work, and they did. Many of the regulars became friends with some guest stars, so I guess it was okay. It was just too many people to write for. You couldn't really get to know more than a couple of regulars. You know the most about Kira, then maybe Cisco and Odo, then Quark and Bashir. Worf we always knew from his Next Generation days. In my opinion, they haven't done a lot with Worf since he has been on DS9. We really don't know too much about Dax other than that she's a wisecracker who seems to roll with the punches. However, I loved that they made it a point to show that she was good in battle, that she was an equal who could get in there with anyone and hold her own. Since Dax's science office blew up, though, we've learned even less about her. That was one of the reasons I realized it was time to leave. They couldn't do much more with Dax. They couldn't promise me that they would do 5 Dax episodes next season, and I didn't want them to make that promise. I realize that there are 9 characters, and all of these great guest leads that have become integral parts of the show and of the stories. No one could argue that. If I got lucky, I might have gotten 2 Dax excuse me. I might have gotten 2 Dax shows next year. Well, geez, what if I got hit by that proverbial bus and I was in the middle of season 7? I would be so angry that I came back for what? Money? And not because I was working more or getting to do anything creatively different? That seemed like a really silly reason to come back. I didn't need to say yes. I saved my money exactly because I wanted to be able to say no if I felt I needed to say no. Jadzia's journeys. Looking back at more than 120 episodes, Farrell has her favorites, her disappointments, and her bizarre moments to recount. First, she cites what she considers the best Dax episodes. I loved Far Beyond the Stars. Avery Brooks did a great job as a director and an actor. He let me do a New York accent for it, and I chewed so much gum in that show it was insane, she laughs. It was fun because the character I played wasn't Dax or even a variation on Dax. Change of Heart was up there with the best Dax shows, and so was Fascination. It was fun and comedic and off the wall. I liked having that likeness coming out of nowhere every once in a while. Playing God was a favorite because I got to work with Jeffrey Blake as Arjun. He had played my boyfriend on Paper Dolls a million years ago. Mastering the technobabble in that show was a huge achievement for me. Alright, so this is another pretty long article, and I will continue reading in the next part. See ya.